Hello, quest givers and inquisitors, my name is TBSkyne, and welcome to my hallway, where my adorable pet rats are going to be running around while I answer some questions from you guys on Patreon. For those who don't know, this is one of the perks on Patreon. If you support me at any level per month, then once a month you get to ask me questions. So you can ask me pretty much anything you want if you sign up to the Patreon. And I'm considering trying to find a way to let people who do one-time donations ask questions as well. I'm going to need to figure that out. But for the moment, at least we've got a bunch of questions, so let's just get started on it. Daniel Jason asks, what's your favorite part of a rat? Tails, feet, little sniffer, etc.? Oh, that's a tough one, but I think my favorite part of a rat is actually the whiskers. There's something about them that is just so adorable and makes them look so silly. Sigioi asks, what are your thoughts on Dark Souls gameplay or lore so far, or both? Interested to hear before you get the full story. I mean, I don't know what I can say here that I haven't already said in the Dark Souls videos and streams themselves, but basically, I think it's a really interesting, very dense, layered world with a hell of a lot of interesting themes going on. And you know, testament to that is every Dark Souls boss designs video I put out, I get at least 10 or 15 comments from people going, hang on, I've got a completely different interpretation of this thing, and you're way over-interpreting this thing, and you should be focusing on that other aspect of the character design instead. And that, to me, is a hallmark of like a video game where the design aesthetic and the story writing has been so strong that people can have a very strong, very different opinions on the subject matter. And that's, you don't get that with everything. Some things are just kind of too obvious to have too many opinions about, and Dark Souls is not one of those. As far as the gameplay goes, well, I would be lying if I said I don't find Dark Souls to be kind of unappealingly clunky in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of jank going on in there in the animations and a lot of like how the movement feels and stuff like that, but I feel like a lot of that is also intentional, like to force you to think more carefully about how you're moving, which is, you know, a big part of the gameplay loop. But you know, Yuri Kim asks, I noticed that you watch Eurovision, so I decided to sneak in a massive off topic. Who was your favorite this year, and a favorite ESC entry in general? I don't know, because I don't actually remember any of the songs from this year's Eurovision. I never do. Eurovision is extremely disposable pop to me, so none of it ever really sticks in my mind, and I never really bother to go back and listen to any of the songs after the contest is over. I watch Eurovision Song Contest for the pageantry and the silliness and just for the party of it all. I'm not really that interested in the music. That being said, I do have a favorite Eurovision Song Contest entry, and that is Dansevise from 1963, which is a song that Denmark won with. And it's one of those melodies where I don't remember the lyrics at all. I rarely ever listen to it, but the melody sticks in my head, and I walk around whistling a lot without really knowing why. And that's my favorite just on the basis of that. Pineapple asks, if you could bring one species back from extinction, which would you pick and why? It would have to be an ecosystem engineer species of some kind. That is like a primary pollinator, or like a species like some kind of beaver that's gone extinct that was otherwise, you know, creating wetlands in the natural environment, or wolves. Apex predators can be really important to a local ecosystem, so I'd find one of those species that has gone extinct and then bring it back. Anna, oh, here's a name I can't pronounce. Anna Borochik? The name on the screen. What are your top 5 games of all time, and what is your favorite character design if you have one, except Rammus? Oh, man, I always have so much trouble with like top 5 lists, or top lists of things, because like when it comes to video games, I've played like thousands over the course of my life, and I've liked a lot of them for extremely different reasons, so I don't know how to quantify all of that into a, oh yes, this is the one I like the most overall, because I like them for different things. I mean, I guess by time played, I guess my favorite game of all time would have to be Transport Tycoon Deluxe, just because I've sunk like thousands of hours into that game, but that's more because that's a really easy game to play. That's like, I used to wind down from a lot of things, not so much because it's like, oh my god, the best experience I've ever had. This many games I like, I don't know which ones are my favorites. And then it kind of extends into the second part of your question, which is like, how do I gauge a favorite on what basis? Favorite realistic character design, favorite cartoony character design, favorite animated movie character? There's so many different kinds of character design for so many different purposes and so many different constructions that it's like, I don't know how to quantify all of that into a simple, oh, this is the best one that I like the most. So yeah, I mean, I really like the character design of the Traveler in Journey, like the main playable characters in that game. I really like their character design just because it's so simple and efficient in its storytelling, but I don't necessarily think that's better than, you know, the really complicated character designs that I like a lot of the stuff out of the Metal Gear Solid series, for example, I'm really, really fond of, but those character designs tend to be a lot more dense and complex in a lot of the ways that they express things, but I don't know how to put one above the other in terms of how much I like them, because I like them in very different ways. Anyway, that was kind of an unhelpful answer. Artemis asks, what do you think is the decision process behind Riot creating skins for easier, read popular champions over others that may be in more need of the attention that a new skin would garner, like Talia or Serath? I mean, that's how League of Legends makes money. They sell skins and cosmetics. That's their primary source of income, as far as I know. So the decision process is, this champion is popular. If we pour X number of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and it can literally cost millions of dollars into creating a high-quality skin for this champion, we will make that money back for sure with a nice profit margin on top of it. And if you don't get that nice profit margin, or indeed if creating a skin would lose you money, then you don't do it. And I happen to know that certain champions, there's no point for Riot to create skins for it. Like, they're played by so few people, and the people who play them have favorite skins already and are unlikely to purchase new ones, and they know this because they have extensive statistics on that shit, where just there's no point making skins for them because they will never make the money back. And I have my problems with capitalism, and I have a lot of problems with Riot as a company and their snake bastard management, but I can't fault them for sticking to what has been their business model for like 10 years, which is we sell cosmetics for the champions, the game is otherwise free to play. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like, I don't really have a strong criticism of that. I do think it's weird to moralize it, though. Like, to go, it's an injustice that this champion hasn't received a skin in so and so many years. Like, that... No, they didn't monetize your particular demographic for a while. That's not an injustice. That's a business decision. And I think it's really, really weird to take that and be like, I have a right to be exploited for my money. I feel awkward about that. Solitary Wave On asks, do you watch or read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and if so, who or what are your favorites? No, I don't watch JoJo, I've never read JoJo. Everything I know about JoJo comes from memes and friends who have it almost as like an anime religion, gushing about it to me, but I don't have any relationship with the series myself, so no favorites. I mean, I really like that one, oh, you're coming to me? Well, I can't beat you up if I don't come to... That meme is fun. I guess that's the closest thing I have to a favorite. Neck asks, what musical instruments can you play? Well, I play the guitar. I have done for like over 10 years, so I'm relatively decent at that. I play the bass. I play the ukulele, which I'm slowly getting better at as well. I can play the piano, some not amazingly, but I can, and I've got a couple of ocarinas that I sometimes try to practice. They're really loud, so it's hard to practice in an apartment building, but I have them, and I can play the Song of Time on one of them. And I have a recorder also. It's a thing I have just to annoy people, and I can play a few melodies on that as well. But that's I've had I had a bunch of I've had like little hand synthesizers that when you input stuff and sample stuff, and I had it's not a harp, but it's a thing that's sort of like a harp. It's a bunch of strings tied to nails on a board basically, and each one plays a different note. I don't remember what it's called, but I had that for a while, and then it broke because it was crap. But yeah, a bunch of instruments, but mostly the guitar. Neck also asks, favorite character from Steven Universe? That would have to be Peridot. And finally, they ask, please share an urban legend / ghost story from Denmark. I don't know a lot of them, actually. Like, I mean, I know old folk tales about, like, people who walk into the woods and who are taken by the elves, and I know that when it's misty outside, like when you see a light mist rising from the swamps, you shouldn't go out there because it means the swamp witch is brewing her spells, and if you go out there, you might get, caught and turned into a stew. I know that you shouldn't go near old mounds in the woods, especially at night, because you might be taken by the elves and the Elf King, who will dance you to death in their halls under the earth. I know that if you live on a farm, you should put out porridge for the Nisse, which is it's a type of goblin or elf that tends to live on farms, and if you do that, then they'll help you out. They'll help you with the harvest. They'll make sure your creatures don't get sick. And if you don't do that, well, you can suffer anything from pranks to, the plague. So you better be sure to do that. We used to do that every year at Christmas to put out some rice porridge for the little goblin that lived in our house. Theoretically lived in our house, and in the morning, the porridge would be gone. I wonder if the goblin has been there, and sometimes they'd leave little gifts for the children. I mean, it was my parents eating the porridge, obviously, but it was fun. Mirella Frey asks, can you talk about a choice you made when you were younger that might have greatly changed your life if you chose otherwise? For example, choosing between two different education routes, moving to one city or the other, yada yada. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bring the mood down too much because I've got some sad stories on that topic, but I guess an obvious one would be that I am not a trained animator, but I wanted to be for a while. I applied to animation school a couple of times. I got rejected, but I got really close to getting in, and I kind of had a sense if I applied a third time, I would probably have gotten there. But by that time, I had friends who were fully educated animators who worked in the animation industry, and I just sort of saw what their job-seeking process was and the kind of work that they got to do. And I decided, it might be fun, but it's not really what I want out of my life. That's not really the kind of life that I want to have. And that kind of spiraled me for a loop a little bit, because that was the goal for a very long time, was to become an animator. And without that, I didn't really know what the hell I was going to do. So I went to university. I took 2 bachelor's degrees, basically. Just kind of flailing around. Maybe I'll become a teacher. I don't know. For a long time, making content on the internet, and then this happened, very luckily. And if I hadn't dropped out of animation as a career, who knows if I'd be doing this. Mirella Frey also asks, are you going to make another presentation in Denmark like that one you did on character design at a convention? I mean, if a convention wants to invite me to give a talk, I'd be very happy to do it, but at the moment I don't have any plans to. And by the way, for the rest of you, if you want to see that talk, it is on my vlog channel somewhere, and you can see my face in it if you're particularly interested in seeing that. It's a terrible recording, but I did my best to try and clean it up. Plague Amon asks, in League of Legends, Void champions tend to have the problem of being just viewed as a group of monsters with few things making them really distinct from each other. What steps do you think Riot writers could take to make the Void champions more unique as individual characters without sacrificing the overall idea of the Void as a cosmic horror faction? I mean, just keep doing what they're doing right now, really? Because we've got Cho'Gath, who's kind of crappy, and we've got the Void Poppy Kog'Maw, who should really be classified as, wild natural fauna on Runeterra, be taken out of the Void. But then you have, Kha'Zix and Rek'Sai and Vel'Koz, and they're kind of fine. I feel like they're fine as Void monsters on their own, because each of them have a very distinct set of inspirations to them. Vel'Koz is the tentacle monster, the flying eyeball, that classic cosmic horror vision thing. Then you have Kha'Zix, who's literally the alien and the predator rolled into one. And then you have Rek'Sai, who is this, land shark creature thing going. I think they've got a strong direction going on there, where each monster is clearly inspired by different sci-fi horror tropes. And like you say, the trouble is that the Void is kind of supposed to be the opposite of distinct, unique, and individual. They're all supposed... The Void wants to consume Runeterra because it can't abide difference. It can't abide that something exists that is not the Void. It wants to turn everything into the Void and make everything the same and uniform and indistinct from each other. And that's really hard to express in character design without just making the same character over and over again, because that's kind of what you sort of have to do. But what they're doing right now works fine, I think, under the circumstances. Chelserella asks, how did you become a comic artist? As in, did you get any official training, or did you learn things all by yourself? Well, like I said, I pursued animation, and before I dropped, I took life drawing classes, and I took some illustration classes and stuff like that, but I never received any, formal education in the thing. Mostly, I started with a terrible how to draw manga book when I was 13. It was absolutely awful. It gave me a lot of bad habits, but it got me started and made me practice. And then I kept practicing, and I got feedback from my peers, my friends. I followed tutorials that I found online, and mostly I am self-taught. That River asks, one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters is Lightning from the 13 series, but it seems a lot of people dislike her. Could you give us some quick insight opinion on her character design? I mean, yeah, my trouble with the Final Fantasy 13 character designs, and indeed the Final Fantasy 15 designs after, is that they're not really interested in being character designs so much as they're interested in being fashion designs. And the thing about Lightning in particular is that she has this background where she's supposed to be like a soldier, a sort of uncompromising, essentially a cop for the l'Cie, the fal'Cie, whatever the hell the authority figures are called, and a lot of that doesn't really come across in her character. Like, there's really no sense of that, the idea of uniform. It's the same problem that Caitlyn has in League of Legends, where she's supposed to be a detective and an officer and like a primary sheriff and like an agent of the law, but she doesn't look like any of those things. She looks like a socialite who's cosplaying in steampunk cosplay. And Lightning has the same problem in that her character design is way too focused on giving her a cool look and a cool, fashion sense and a cool aesthetic, and it doesn't really bother to tell the story of who she is as a person in her outfits. Shadow Cat Inc. asks, what do you think about Doctor Strange, the Marvel one? Not much. I haven't really read a lot of his comics, so I don't really have a relationship with that one. The movie version is, like, fine. It was kind of, like, plot-wise, it was boring because it's just Hogwarts Tony Stark, but visually it was fantastic. It has some fantastic visual elements. But I like Doctor Strange in the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyway. I like him a lot more as a foil and counterpart to other characters. Like, I love him in Thor Ragnarok. He's fantastic in that one. I don't love him a lot as his protagonist of his own franchise. Anna Borochik, I think might be the pronunciation. By any chance, are you coming to the Gamescom in Germany so we can meet you live? Yes, I know it would be pretty expensive for you. Yeah, expensive might be understating it, actually. Like, I make a living doing this YouTube thing, but I could be making a lot more money working a minimum wage job of any other kind in this country. So yeah, I mean, between the hotel room, which is incredibly expensive during Gamescom, and the flight, and not being able to work on my YouTube channel while I'm gone, it's not something that looks very likely at the moment. Like, if a company invited me for some reason as an influencer, which is not very likely, but then maybe I'd go. Or if, I could do some fundraisers. Maybe I could do like a fundraising stream for a year to save up money for it, but not this year. Sorry. Chelserilla asks, what languages do you speak? Well, I mean, I speak English, obviously, but that's not my mother tongue. My mother tongue is Danish, så jeg snakker dansk, primært. Og jeg tror, min stemme lyder noget anderledes på dansk, end den gør på engelsk. I don't know. Folk har fortalt mig forskellige ting. So yeah, that was Danish. Je parle aussi un petit peu de français, mais c'est très mal. I speak very little French, and it's very, very bad. It's like 3 years of high school French, like 10 years ago now, so I don't remember any of it. Ich spreche auch ein bisschen Deutsch, aber, as you can tell, that's not very good German either. I speak a little bit of it. I can read French pretty decently. I can read German pretty decently. I can get by in Swedish and Norwegian because I'm Danish and our languages are really close together. I can read Swedish and Norwegian perfectly. I can't speak it so well. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a bunch of different languages, but I'm not good at any of them. Couch asks, have you ever thought of doing an analysis of the storytelling band Gloryhammer? They are a power metal band with a heavy focus on storytelling. They just released an album with one of the most unique premises for a setting that I've seen so far. Essentially Nordic Warhammer 40k. Very curious about your opinion of the band. My opinion is I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them before now, and I guess that sounds like a cool premise, but I don't think I'm that interested in checking them out, so sorry, I guess. And finally, Neon Pinku asks, have you ever played a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? Because after playing the Explorers of Sky game, I thought the writing was really good and something you might like too. No, I've never played a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, so I don't really have any opinions on it. And that's all the questions for June. If you want to ask your own question, well, sign up for the Patreon and I'll put up a post where you can ask any questions you want, whatever subject you might want me to talk about, and then I'll do another video like this in about a month's time. Before we go though, one last thing. There's a question that like several dozen people have asked me at this point, and I can understand why. I have avoided answering it for the same reason I avoid showing my face in most of my videos, which is that I'm just kind of a private person and I don't necessarily want to put that many parts of my innermost personal life out there. But at this point, not saying anything is causing me more trouble than it's worth because it makes it hard to discuss certain things. So, I am not gay. And I am also not straight. And if I could be any more specific, if there was a label that was more specific that fit me, Believe you me, I would be using it, but there isn't, so I can't. Happy Pride.